Comedy. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is the Business of Comedy panel, but I think it might be a little funnier than I just said it. And this panel is sponsored by Siren Nation, which is a nonprofit organization that works to promote women in the arts and to create performance and discussion and exhibition opportunities. And we've got an amazing lineup of women here. If you're interested in finding out more about them and Siren Nation after the panel, grab one of the pink programs on the table near the door. It's got everybody's bio and website in it, and the info. And I'm going to turn it over to JoAnn. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us with an amazing women-driven arts festival. And thank you guys for joining us today. My name is JoAnn, and we're going to just do some bios down the line. I'll start with myself. I am a comic and actress and writer and producer here in town, and I run a weekly show called Control Yourself, which happens every Sunday at Alberta Street Pub, and it is an amazing show, in my opinion, and I've been running it for about it'll be 4 years in January. It's also a podcast, and so all these wonderful humans at the table today are in the business of comedy, not just as funny individuals, but also women who get shit done. So that's what we're here to talk to you guys about. And we'll touch on different topics with that. But I'll go down at the very end, all the way down with bios that was written. This was my goal. I'm going to be an actor today, and I'm going to tell everyone's bio in a fun way. At the very end of the table, we have Janet Scanlon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Janet is an actor, writer, and improviser in Portland, Oregon. She recently appeared in season 7 in Portlandia. She's a regular on local stages, including the Siren Theater, which we'll hear more about, Center Stage, Arts Repertory Theater, and the Brody Theater, as well as around U.S. and Canada at multiple festivals. Janet teaches improv at companies with Playworks and is the lead facilitator with On Your Feet designing and delivering applied improv workshops to clients around the globe. That is a woman who gets shit done. On stage, she is known for her crackling wit, her generosity, and crafting characters which are deeply human. Round of applause for Janet. And then we have Shelly McLendon, owner and operator of Bad Reputation Productions and the Siren Theater. Are you saying something? Which is located downtown in Chinatown. And if you have not had the opportunity to go see a wonderful production there, please go. She's largely responsible for the stage adaptations of the movies Roadhouse, The Lost Boys, Poltergeist, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. She's a founding member of sketch comedy duo The Aces and improv troupe The Liberators, and is the co-producer of the Portland Sketch Comedy Festival, and has also performed in the San Francisco Sketch Comedy Festival, Chicago Sketch Fest, Women in Comedy Festival in Boston, and the Portland Mercury's Undisputable Genius of Comedy. Round of applause for Shelley!
I'm sorry, can I interrupt for 1 second? We have a missing phone from the previous panel. Is there a phone under that table anywhere?
Red alert.
A phone that is
That's
not
my
on
first.
the We could tie it together to another.
It's in a pink case. Do you want one of us to call it?
Yes, my phone.
Seems like that would.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's great.
We now return to the regular program.
You want us to call it?
I can.
Okay, great. We'll keep talking, but if a phone rings, we'll jump up again. In the middle of the table, we have Katie Nguyen, ladies and gentlemen. Katie writes and performs stand-up, improv, sketch, and more. She's performed at San Francisco Sketch Fest, Asheville Comedy Festival, 10,000 Laughs, Stumptown Improv Fest, and the Bridgetown Comedy Festival. She's an ensemble member at the Brody Theater and an instructor at Deep End Theater. She hosts the show Earthquake Hurricane and was named one of the Portland Mercury's original geniuses of comedy. Katie Nguyen. Kirsten Kuppenbender. Kirsten is a powerhouse. I love this line. Is a powerhouse with a heart made of precious metal. She's a comedian and actor and the visionary of a comedic revolution called Lez Stand Up. In addition, with her brilliant stand-up and hosting skills, she's the founding producer of Lez Stand Up, Portland-based all-queer feminist comedy collective that showcases performers up and down the West Coast. You may have seen her in Bridgetown Comedy Festival, the All Jane Funny Women Festival in LA, and more recently she opened for Michael Che here in town.
Wow.
Thank you. And last but not least, we are wonderfully joined by Erin Jean O'Regan, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Erin is a hilarious human being, an improviser, an actor, yes, and founding member of the Stumptown Improv Festival, which is an amazing improv festival that has acts from all over the world come join us here in Portland, and really, really putting Portland on the map for being an amazing improv town. So thank you all for joining us here today. One of the first questions I just wanted to open the floor to was, how long has everyone been in your field of comedy, of starting out and then up until now? So whether that means like in college or just a little bit of background on everybody.
Well, I started when my dog died about 8 years ago because it freed up time, and I always wanted to do something that involved either a microphone or a stage, and started to take classes around Portland, improv classes, and learn how to work that muscle. So it's been almost a decade or so, and then the Stumptown Improv Festival started with that. This will be our 5th year with the Stumptown Improv Fest. So yeah, that's the quick and dirty with me.
So therapeutic. It started from a therapeutic place.
Yeah, and well, there was some part in my 30s where I was like, fuck it, like I've always wanted to try this. Why am I not trying this? And there's a place for me to do that here in Portland, and it was accessible, and it was fun. So it didn't, it wasn't until I did improv for a while that it became not painful, but like I wanted to get better, and it got really hard. So yeah, it continues to be really hard, but fun.
It continues to be hard. It is a job.
Oh, I'll talk now. I've been in the comedy world of Portland and otherwise for about 7 years. And before that, I went to theater school and have very good posture as a result. I wanted to do comedy. I wanted to do stand-up. I didn't know how. I bought a couple books. I went and watched a lot of comedy, and then I told all my friends I was going to start doing open mics, and then I would go to open mics and be horrified, and I'll try to keep it brief, but I just want to tell you how Lez Stand Up started, because that's how I started.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here for. Yeah.
Well, I told enough people that I was going to do it, and that I was like, okay, now I got to do it, and then but I got spooked at the open mics, and then my friend was like, what's going on? You keep saying you're going to do this stuff. And I was like, it's just a nightmare. It's just all these like people like holding the microphone like a penis, or like being like, oh, then I roofied her, or like whatever. It was just like I didn't ever want to get on stage because the dudes going before me were kind of yucky. And so I told my friend, I wish that I could just have like lesbians in the audience and lesbians on stage, and we'll call it Lez Stand Up. And it was like a total, complete like, haha, we'll do that thing. And she's like, you could do that and open for my DJ night. And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, look. And then
all the great ideas start. Yes.
And then I'm going to say 3 or 4 days later, she had put a Facebook invite up, and I was tagged in it, and it was like, gay pizza with Lez Stand Up. And I was like, what the heck? And then she had like, she put the invite together, so I had to,
saw the genius in you.
She just like took me at my word.
Yeah.
And so I gathered up like one of the comics I'd seen out who I knew was bi or queer on solo level, and then I did it as an open mic because I didn't know any other queers, and then and called it Lez Stand Up. And then that night, like, it was before a gay dance night, but still like 90 people showed up for an open mic, and then it's been pretty packed ever since. And that was, but I had like, and I was terrible. I was really, and that like I'd never actually done stand up until that.
Yeah, so it's like you created your own opportunity.
Yeah, and then I had to, and it was really bad. I mean, it was fine. I had some like halfway, but I was just like twisting myself up, and the mic cord was like, I don't know what's going on. But like people liked it, and people who were in the audience were like, I want to do that. Can I be on your show? And I was like, yeah. And then it just like turned itself because people wanted a queer stand-up show, and because we're like crazy enough to do it, and because Portland will like, there's so much room in Portland for comedy. People are like, sure, you got a new idea, let's do that. That's great. And so that's where I'll be.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I've been in comedy performing about a little over 6 years, and I never planned or intended on becoming a performer. I moved here, I had like a corporate job, I didn't know a single person, it was the middle of the winter, it was very sad. It's very, very sad. And I just signed up for classes just for fun. Like I had the swivel and come forward, I had evenings free, it's only like 2 hours, like once a week, for like 6 weeks or 7 weeks, something like that. And I really enjoyed them. I started improv and stand up at the exact same time. And improv, there's like levels, and so like you meet people, it's like a very social thing, so you just kind of want to keep going. So I kept on going, like hanging out with my peers, improving with my peers. That was really fun. Stand up. By the end of it, everybody was like, "Have you done an open mic yet?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "Why didn't you get an open mic? That's really done with you." And so I did one, and it went really well, and I just found it more fulfilling than I expected it to, and then just kept doing it, and I just got momentum, and I feel I've been very fortunate in my career. Like I've started in a town where the audiences are very much in tune with my style, and people have been able to find me really accessible because of the way I communicate or something like that. Or I've been successful from an early start. I think because I wrote a lot. I didn't plan on becoming a performer, but I started a blog when I was 14, and it started off with kind of diary journaling kind of thing, but it just turned into things I found entertaining in my day. So not so much like an account of what happened, so much as like interesting thoughts that occurred to me throughout the day, and I would just expound on those. So when I started stand-up, a lot of people were like, "You seem to have like already kind of keyed in on a voice." And I'm like, yeah, and that's because I was writing for like 10 years before that. Just as Yeah. My live journal. Yeah, totally.
Pretty much.
Real.
It's still out there, but yeah. So,
Can we link that?
oh man, that is. I gotta go change some names to initials. But yeah, so like I always like verbally expressed what I thought was funny for like the longest time. Didn't realize what I was doing, and then I stumbled into performing, and I really enjoyed it. I found it really enjoyable.
Yeah, with a sustaining career. That's awesome.
I'm Shelly. Hi. I started doing improv in 2000, and had seen my sister do it and thought, oh, that might be fun. And so I started doing it at Comedy Sports in Portland, and then just continued to take classes, and then started to write sketch just because I find sketch super fun. And in 2010, so things were happening, and I got an agent, and I was going out on auditions and getting nothing because I don't ever fit what people are looking. I'm not the Fred Meyer mom. Which I went out for a lot.
It's the only job.
That's the only job.
CenturyLink, Fred Meyer mom.
And I just wasn't, going out for things that I wanted to do, and so kept watching the movie Roadhouse, which is always on television somewhere. And I'm like, this would make a really fun play. And so I found the script online and talked to some friends about doing the staged adaptation of Roadhouse in 2010, and that's how Bad Reputation Productions got started, because I had to have a production company associated with the show in order to do something. So Bad Reputation started in 2010, so we did Roadhouse, and that was super fun. It's crazy. And then just continued to write sketch and do shows like Roadhouse. We did the Lost Boys stage adaptation of the Lost Boys, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which was super funny. And then one of the biggest issues was trying to find a place to do a show, because there's only so many mid-sized theaters in Portland that you can actually afford if you're just like doing what I'm doing. And so a friend of mine approached me and said, "Hey, we want to back you to start your own theater," and that was 4 years ago. And it took me 2 years to find the Siren space. And so the Siren has been open for 2 years now, and Bad Reputation does all their stuff there. It's been great. It's exactly what I thought it would be, to run a theater in Chinatown, Oregon. Chinatown, Portland, Oregon. It's been great. Lez Stand Up performs a lot of their shows there, and they're fantastic. So yeah, that's me.
I am Janet. I took my very first improv class in 2009. I moved to Portland after I graduated from college, and I just assumed that people were supposed to move a place, get a job, and start working, and that's literally what I did. And I worked at like a very stressful, completely all-consuming corporate job for like, I don't know, 15 years or something. And everyone at work, because of course I would be at work and just mocking people behind their, push to their face. I don't know. But people were like, you should just be on stage, and they would say that to me a lot. And so I don't know. I went with my mom and my sister. If you knew them, you'd think it would be funny that we went to Las Vegas together. For my mom, we bought a present for my mom to go to Las Vegas, which is really ridiculous. But we were like, what do you do with your mom? Las Vegas. So we saw that Second City had like a little training center there, and so we went to see the show, and I realized that Second City had training centers all over. My job was so all-consuming here in Portland that I didn't even know that there was any improv happening at all, or there were classes or anything. I didn't know anything. So I was like, I want to go to one of those training centers or one of their intensives, and they only have them in the summer at the time. And so I kept trying to change my job at work. I literally write job descriptions to change my job so I could not have the busy time of year, which was right when they were doing these classes. And then I'd get another project and I could never go. And then I got laid off, and they gave me this big severance. And the first thing I did was I went and took intensive down in Los Angeles with Second City, and then I went to Chicago, and then I realized after that, because I wasn't working, which was the best thing that ever happened, I started taking a bunch of classes around town. And so many awesome people come and do workshops here. Jamie Moyer is doing one at the Siren, and that's a really awesome person to take a class from. Yeah, so I've taken classes from some of the like major people in improv and comedy in the game right here in Portland. People come all the time, and so I just started performing. Started at Curious. I performed pretty much like every Friday and Saturday night for like 2 years because they didn't have the amount of people that they have there now. They had 8 people on a main stage team. And then I performed at Brody, and then I do a lot of the shows at Siren, which is really awesome. Yeah, and then I also just take a bunch of acting classes as well, just to try to be better at that. I don't know what else to say, so I'm gonna stop talking.
Yeah, thank you. You bring up a good point about, I mean, I moved here from the Midwest, well, it'll be 5 years now, and I didn't know where to look, you know, like the internet is a scary place, and sometimes, and at the point, I mean, technology has advanced in 5 years, but at the point, I was like, what is this Portland bubble, and how do I tap into it, you know? I knew I wanted to start stand-up, but I hadn't ever done that yet, but I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do, I didn't know what to Google, I didn't know, you know, and so I think it's exciting now that with all the people you see here in front of this panel have really made the strides to make those opportunities available to so many people to come and learn their craft and to hone in on comedy. And so it's a really exciting opportunity that we are presenting to the community. And going along with that, the next question, just to kind of piggyback of what everyone's background was when was that moment that you decided to like kick it up a notch of like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm serious about it, because at a certain point it becomes a part-time job and or the goal is a full-time job, right? And that's where the business end comes about it. It's really hard to, you come to work in some, you know, if you have a 9 to 5, you get to turn that off. But when you're in the world of comedy, it's constantly on. Your reputation's on the line. You know, your business emails can happen any hours of the day because the scheduling's very absurd. So when was the moment in everyone's journey of when you were like, oh, this is something I can't deny anymore, and this is becoming like bigger than me? And what were your fears or excitements with that?
I think for me, I was working full time at a university as an academic advisor, and I'd been there a while and had a lot of vacation time that I'd built up, and all of my vacation time, I didn't ever go on vacation, I would do shows. And so like I would take like, oh, got the show coming up, and I'm taking that week off of Tech Week and just, you know, make my vacation into a working vacation. So when I thought about how I wanted to spend my free time, it wasn't like just hanging out, although I do love to hang out.
Yeah. I love lounging. Yeah.
I love lounging. But that's when I thought about, what do I want to do this weekend? I want to be in a show. I want to create. I want to create something. I don't want to just. And that also has a downside too. Like when you're opening a show and you're like, I don't know how this is going to go. And the sketch comedy show or an improv show, you're like, I don't know how this is going to go. And there's always a moment where I'm like, I don't have to do this. Like, I can just go home and watch sports, which I would never do. I can just go home and like go to my job and then come home and just watch television. And I don't have to like put myself in that position where you're being watched and evaluated and performing. But I do it because I love it, and that moment is very brief compared to the.
Can I ask you a personal? So you mentioned 2 years to find a venue. So you had financial backers for Siren Theater.
Right.
2 years to find a venue. Was that? Did you ever feel like giving up within that 2
Sure.
years?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Siren was almost in 5 different locations. Like I was very close to signing a lease on on many occasions, and something would fall through, or you know, they decided to go with someone else, and there was a time I'm like, you know what, it's fine, I don't have to do this, and then I would take a week off, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna go look and see if there's something else. I'm just gonna get on LoopNet.
Yeah.
Is that it? LoopNet?
No idea.
Zoomcare? And luckily, all the stars were aligned, and I met the owners of the building. Right as the building was never put on the market, so it was like my agent was working with both of them, so it worked. So, but yes, there were times when I'm like, I don't have to do this. I can just keep trying to find a theater and just put something up when I can. And so yeah.
I remember one night, it made me think of you, something that Shelley said. One night before, I was doing a few minutes of Lez Stand Up. I was doing some stand up, and I was super nervous because I don't do stand up very often. And Coop, you were like, do what I do, scream really loud, and you say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this.
I want it.
I want it. Yeah. And it's true because there's so many times like right before a show opens, or like sketch, or when we did Poltergeist and stuff, you know, it's that like blank feeling of like, I don't know if this is any good. Like you've gone through all this process and you worked so hard for it. And you're like, oh, what am I doing? Like, look at this wig. Like, what am I doing with my life? I love it. And it's just like, for me, I get so bummed out when a project's over. You know, I'm so elated when it works out, and persistent if it doesn't. Like if I do a sketch and it doesn't hit well, it's like I want to either figure it out or find something that does, and like redemption to me, but no one else. It's just like, I there are times when I think like, well, maybe I'll just get into like baking or something and just like settle down and do something that's more profitable.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make me happy, and all my friends are doing it, and it's great to see what they come up with, and what we can come up with together. So, yeah, it wasn't like a moment, but it felt like it.
I felt like days.
It felt like days.
Yeah, I would say comedy is interesting in that it's not like you start as a hobby, you make the change, it becomes a job. It's a job from the very beginning because you need an audience in order to be able to perform comedy. Like you can keep baking at home and getting better and better, or doing art and producing it and not trying to, show it at galleries. But comedy, you need an audience to do it in the first place and to get better at it. And also, in that sense, it's not the kind of thing you can start off on a personal, intimate level and then like show it to the public when you're actually professionally ready. Like you have to start off presenting yourself like as your persona under your name. Some people change their name in certain ways in a comedy, or some people look back, or they have videos online that somebody took like 5 years ago, and they're like, who owns this YouTube account? I need to get this off the internet because it's that like everything
Currently going through that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean it's not like it never really starts as a hobby, it turns into a job, and it's a professional thing from the very beginning. And
I think, to chime in, and I do want you to finish, I think that is what makes the difference, because to some people it is just a hobby, and that's cool because there's a place for that, but for people that stand out and shine and really take on more responsibility within the community, it's because it has been a job from day one.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's looked at. There's like a sense of responsibility to not only creating a space that you feel comfortable in, but also like creating a space where you're like, hey, this is financially better for me to own my own thing than rent out all the time. So it's interesting to me whenever I meet people who are just crushing it, there is that mentality of that it's always been a job. It's always been looked at as a thing, and it's a fine line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's a definite line, and everyone, no matter what levels, has a place. But to take on more responsibility, I can't stress enough how stressful it happens to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if you're just getting booked for your first show, like 3 months into your career, you're getting booked officially, and you're going to get $4. And
Yeah.
that's a gig, and
That's
you might not be good enough yet. You might not feel like you deserve it. Maybe like other people don't think you deserve it. But I mean, already at that point, you're in the cycle of proving what you can do, performing for people, and the people evaluate you, and then they decide whether or not to book you again. Like it's like constant job evaluations, and the results are whether or not you get booked for another show. So it's this weird, like team evaluation kind of thing, and then it branches out. So you get lucky.
Yeah, and it is interesting how often, again, the line between your personal life and then your professional life in comedy is blurred, because there's so many times where someone will say something and they're trying to get booked on your show or something, and they say something that's a little bit off-putting, and you're like, would you talk to your boss that way? Like there is that element of social etiquette when it comes to this social thing we do at night, but it is still a job, even if you get that $4, that's still someone giving you $4 for work that you did.
Oh no, you go.
Oh, gosh. No, I was just gonna say that I just knew that I didn't ever want to go back and do what I was doing.
Yeah.
That is my motivation, is to never have to do that again. But for real.
Yeah.
And it also because I feel like I started so, late that I was behind. So I was like, how many classes can I take? How many times can I get on stage so that I can get back to even, with
It's
people
like
that have been doing
a
this
second
for 20
college.
years.
Yeah.
So that's part, it's like there's a motivation to do as much as I can in a short span to be as good as I can. And then of course I realized that that's not how it works at all. But still, I still wanted to put a lot of effort towards it. So I'm trying to craft my life in as many ways as I can to do as few corporate-y things as I can to keep going and pay for my house and stuff.
Yeah, life as well.
I started late too, as far as stand-up, because I didn't get on stage until I was 35. And actually just the other day I was like, why are all my friends younger than me? And it's stand-up, because a lot of people, it's an all ages thing, but there are definitely a lot of young people. A lot of young
Young.
young kids.
Did you feel pressure because of?
I mean,
an
I
age
think
thing?
I have had a running, you gotta get in there, you gotta catch up. And I have I'm very nice to myself. I'm always like, you're behind. But because of, and I had sort of a different, I didn't realize, I was very hobbyist about it until the show just started blowing up. And then I was like, there's a lot of people here. And I kept looking out and being like, every one of those people decided to arrange their night to be in that chair tonight, and I just would have had this this has got to be good, and more, it become more consuming. But initially it was just a place, it was like a vessel for me to try out comedy, and then I loved it, and then it became a community thing because of the show, and because at some point we developed a mission statement where we're like, this is a safe space, so there's just no hateful, shitty jokes that are there. Our audience the show is for the audience, and that kind of shifted it when I was like, oh, it's about them and me. But the thing that really shifted me into this is a job, this is professional, is making a website, because it costs $144.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I started, and then also we outgrew the space we were in. We used to be at Mississippi Pizza for a year and a half, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they're like, can you do 2 shows a night? And we're like, no.
Yeah.
And then we moved it to a bigger club, and then we were still on their ticketing system, but it was coming in through my name, and so I had to start doing things oh, I'm an LLC now, because I can't possibly be making this extra amount of money a year. And then so just things started happening and the business was like, hey, I'm a business, and I was like, oh shit, okay. So now I gotta get the name registered, and I gotta do all, so that's kind of how it happened for me, and still, I wasn't, it's because where my self-esteem comes from, it took me a while to be like, I'm a comic, I'm good at it, I love it, I want to bring it to the people, and then like, when I finally, so my self-esteem caught up with actually what was happening, and I was like, okay, that's a business, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And still, haven't been able to make it be my whole business yet, but it's almost there.
It's very much
It's
so on
like
its
starting
way.
to like take over my life in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, you're a classic scenario of if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And they'll come around the corner. Yeah. Well, yeah. Riding 6 white horses. Before we're trucking right along, and so I'm going to pose this question to everybody, and then hopefully that will have, if you can open the floor for if you guys have questions for us too. But so in terms of taking, going off of what Coop said, taking this, when it's like, okay, cool, we've established that this is bigger than me. This is now a business thing, or like, okay, my career is like taking off, and what are all the alignments, and where do I need to be, you know? How do you all tackle the marketing aspect of it? Marketing, even if we could give anyone advice of like local outlets that have been really helpful, or just little tidbits of like, how do you update your website, how often, or word of mouth kind of thing, just in everyone's own little vein. And I'm also interested on a personal level to know how you all separate like a personal from a business marketing standpoint, so you don't exhaust all your followers at once in this age of social media, because that's one of my fears with Control Yourself. It's a weekly show, and thankfully people come every week, so I can lean up on the marketing aspect of it, but I'm very conscious of like, oh, there's JoAnn again, putting a flyer up on the internet. Like, it feels icky sometimes. Sometimes you have to turn that part of your brain off and just like, no, this is, you know, if someone sees it, maybe 5 people will be like, oh yeah, cool, I'm gonna go to that. So I open the floor to that for you guys in terms of how do you put your business out there?
I mean, I'm super reluctant to post stuff on my personal page. I don't like to promote myself in general. I get, you know, like there's that kind of imposter syndrome that you get in the entertainment industry. But also, if you get enough shows where you haven't promoted and no one shows up, at a certain point you realize that feels worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it does, and you feel very responsible for it, because like, I mean, sometimes it doesn't correspond with the amount of effort you put in or don't put in, but sometimes it does. And you look out at the crowd and you're like, there's more performers than comics, and this is really embarrassing because these comics are from out of town, and last week there were so many people here, and it's just like, it is like a professional responsibility kind of thing, but like, I feel like we all take it relatively personally as well when we have to call a show or when not a lot of people show up, because you put so much of yourself into this art. It's not so much like, oh, I did these tasks that I'm talented at, like, why don't you appreciate them? It's like, I, you know, try to pour out my thoughts and my emotions and my experiences in a way that you'd find accessible and maybe like touching or something like that, and you're biting for that. So like, yeah, there does come a point where, and I think, you know, if you've never run an unsuccessful show, you don't have the perspective, but I think most people have run an unsuccessful show. It's just the nature of the biz, and yeah, at a certain point, you do feel like gotta suck it up. But, you know, I am weak in that. I would say in like a lot of like things in comedy, I have like solid A's, B's, and then marketing I have solid like D. So, and I want to be better about that, and that's always been my resolution. And one thing that people do great is producing social media content is huge.
Yeah.
Like Instagram.
You've been kicking it up. I've noticed it. Follow this girl on Instagram. She has really funny little, how long is it, 30 seconds or
I figured
whatever?
those out.
Your
Yeah.
little clips are so funny.
Yeah.
What was that? You had something
Instagram story.
on you? What was it? Yeah.
I love fish.
An actual fish.
Yeah, well, it was like a wooden trout.
Recreate it right now. No, just kidding.
But yeah, that's huge though. A lot of comics end up getting jobs in like certain places because they're so prolific on Twitter, because they're so prolific on like other social media. So yeah, it feels bad to promo the same thing over and over again. I feel less bad about it if I can come up with something funny for it every time, like a little 20-second video or like a 2-liner joke, which can be exhausting, but that's the work we're putting in here. You know, we're not, you know, flying blimps. If it takes like a little bit of writing to put out like a somewhat engaging promo post, then like, yeah, put in the 10-15 minutes it takes to come up with something clever and interesting for that.
I kind of had a formula for a while with Lez Stand Up, and like the Lez Stand Up main troupe is like 4, depending on where people are at, it's usually 4 or 5 of us. But there's definitely, when member of Lez Stand Up who's been a part of the troupe for a long time, and she's such an internet personality. Like, she has jokes about like cultivating it like a child. And at some point, I was like, can you use this power? And so we've had like, she like made an Instagram account for Lez Stand Up, and she tweets for it, which I as a comic, you're supposed to have a Twitter account, but I'm not very good at one-liners and like, or just like brief brevity of any kind. And so I mostly I just retweet like my political agreement by retweeting other people's tweets. But yeah, Laura, who's a member of Lez Stand Up, just like surged the internet thing. But my formula before her was just like reach out to the newspapers that like the weeklies. Like 2 people know, I was like, please add to your calendar, and like I write the thing for them. They change it every time, so it doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
They have at one point we had Dinah Shore on the show. That's not possible. And then I have like a thing where like if I feel like the thing that always motivates is looking at ticket sales. If I'm like, I'm 22, okay, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? And then I'll like invite my mom's friends and like whatever. And that's what I do. But yeah, that's fun.
Invite all your mom's friends, is what you're saying.
It's just horrifying when they come and then you tell a joke about your mom's sex. That happened.
I struggle with it, and I know that sometime in Improv Festival, I'm beholden to our sponsors. I promise them so many posts regarding their product or their theater or their show, whatever it is, and I always try to plug it into, I try to make it funny. I try to make it not too frequently, because I've heard from people, like, it's too much. I'm still learning, like, it's too much. We don't want to hear about it so much. But when I do it, I want to pack a punch and tie in the sponsor, the festival, and the people who like personalize it for people, specific people or specific groups.
You guys have really funny short videos with like that tree.
Stumpy?
Stumpy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
innovative ways, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was it. And you know, I mean, my co-producers are one's a really good friend and one's a new friend through that festival, and just finding those really fun days that we have together and capitalizing on that. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm still figuring it out. But that's where for me, it's like, yes, it is a job. I'm responsible for all of these things, but also have other job, paying bills and providing health care for me that I need to keep and maintain and be at and be present and good at that from 9 to 5.
Are
So
you Obamacare's going away? Oh.
I haven't heard. So, yeah, if anybody figures all of that social media stuff out and makes me better at it.
See, I feel like you're really good at it. I was like, if she's struggling, then I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey, for the kind of stuff you're talking about, I just wanted to ask, are there any kind of social media or internet-specific events that comics can latch onto? Because I know more about the illustration world, and for example, October is Inktober, and a lot of illustrators and comic book artists post ink drawings every day in October. Is there anything like that, or like NaNoWriMo for not people who run writing a novel? Is there anything like that in the comedy business?
I mean, stand-ups at the very least really latch on to hashtags.
Yeah.
So like, what was that show every night? It got so popular because it was a participatory show where they like put out a hashtag and then everybody produced their own take on it. So whenever there's like a big like news thing, even like political or Trump or something like that, if you look up those hashtags, like oftentimes you'll find comics that takes on it.
Yeah.
I don't know about the events that are organized by.
No, there's one thing that I don't think our community really latches onto, but maybe others do, but No Joke November. So like throughout the month of November, if you go to an open mic, you're supposed to just riff the entire time. You're not supposed to come with a joke. That was the thing, like when I first started 4 years ago, was like that. But I don't think anyone adheres to that anymore, because it's like, well, no, I got a job to do.
That's a risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
No Joke November.
No Joke
Just
November.
rants.
Oh.
It's just a bunch of rants.
It was like whenever that came out, more experienced comics were like, oh, all the comics who just started are just gonna go off books, so this is gonna.
Yeah, it was too scary.
Yeah.
Does anyone have questions about, is anyone in the audience like interested in starting their own endeavor comedically, or just questions as to pick our brain? Yes.
Yeah. I have a question about the writing, and maybe this is more for stand-ups. A little bit about, you know, the structure in terms of how often and frequency, et cetera, how much. And I think part B would be just kind of how do you know when you kind of got in there and got into an idea? And then maybe, if I'm so inclined, how's your writing changed over time since you started and maybe now, you know, in terms of the way that you look at the process and how much time you dedicate to it, et cetera?
Yeah.
I'd say there's no minimum or maximum for writing. I mean, you can write too much if you're not performing at all, because you need to perform it. You need to put it through that cycle of feedback. In terms of the second part of that was.
Is it a three-part question?
That was me riffing, by the way.
I think you
that was
brought,
no question, November.
You
Really wasn't a question there.
you brought a good point of what you said. How do you know when you have an idea? You always have an idea.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I didn't want to know the textbook of how much to write. I'm asking, how much do you write?
How much do I write?
Yeah, every day. And then how do you know when you've gotten there? Like
Our
a
live
specific
journal
idea?
is still live.
Sorry?
Nothing. I'm just making
Oh,
a
her
joke.
live
I would say I maybe jot down average, maybe an idea a day. And that's just an idea. That's not necessarily a premise or a joke itself. It's just like, I saw something, I was like, yeah. I wrote that down. Maybe average once a day. Some days I have good days. I used to write Tryman a lot more when I wrote Tryman a lot. That would happen to me a lot.
Yeah.
Observations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then are you going back, like, and I'm sorry, hopefully this is okay, but like, you going back and kind of like hopping around between those ideas and like filling them out and starting to build them and what's?
Yeah, and the thing about stand-up is you never know when you have a joke that'll hit, because you never know what people will find, what part of your psyche people will find accessible. So for me, comedy is all about, and people have different like theories as to what comedy is. To me, comedy is taking what you find funny, something that entertains you, tickles you, and then presenting it in a way that makes it accessible for other people. So it might need to be a sketch, they might need to see it, or it might need to be a video because you might need effects, or it might need to be a story because you need to like see the whole arc. It might need to be a one-liner because the whole thing is about breaking up very simple expectation. But you never know exactly what people are going to get. Like I have this one bit about how I don't like to yawn on crowded public transportation in crowded public places, and I didn't think it would hit at all because I'm like, this is weird. No one's as paranoid as I am. Like nobody has these like hang-ups, and then like I started telling it, and it turns out a lot of people have this one like weird social paranoia that I have, and I had no idea if it was going to hit. And I told other stuff that I thought like, oh, everybody does this, right? And then you say it, and people are like, you monster, and you're like, you know, like it's really. Because we're all so different, and you're really just trying to find that spot in the Venn diagram where you and most of the audience have something in common, or at least can conceptualize something in common. So you just gotta try it, and you're gonna fall flat on your face, and people aren't gonna understand you. It's gonna be really frustrating, and it might be you just need to communicate it better, or it might just be you're a real weirdo, and it's not it's for your job.
How about for you?
Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was that when I was just a volunteer at Curious during the first All Jane Festival, and a comic, Cameron Esposito, was giving a workshop. And I took it, and she said something that I was like, oh yeah. So she goes, you know, because we're both kind of like long-winded, not long-winded, but storytelling comics. I was like, how do you know if a story is going to transform on stage? And she goes, well, you know how you can tell those stories at a bar, and your friends are loving it, you know, and you're engaging. They're like, well, all those details, like your friends know that you talked to your mom that day, so they know what kind of mood that puts you in. You know, if you tell what you're wearing, they care about that because maybe you have heels on and you never wear heels. And so you're setting the stage around people that you know, but the audience doesn't give a fuck about you. They don't know any of that. They don't care. So she's like, write out, if it's a story, write everything out, go back and literally just highlight what needs to be known, the details of it. And then you'll be surprised that that's maybe a one-liner, or maybe that's like a 45-second bit or something. So it's really interesting. I'm a tangible person, so to see everything out there and then to be able to control it in a different way, and then taking that to the stage and then allowing yourself to be a little bit free and maybe go on a second tangent, but come back when you know that beat needs to be said, if that makes sense. Yes.
I've done stand-up a few times, and I like it because I get to craft it and create it, but never until sitting in this room have I even remotely considered improv. Because in my mind it was like this thing that people who want to act do, and I don't want to act, right? Like, so I had this very sharp division. Could anyone explore that a little bit more? Like how they're similar, why it's a good thing, or how they're dissimilar.
It's such a positive thing. Please go.
Katie, you should take that one.
Yeah, I think, I was talking about this recently, and I want you to talk about, because you've done the acting and the improv side, and then the improv, the stand-up side. I think the big difference between straight up acting dramatic for the stage reading, and improv is acting, you're acting. Improv, you're writing and acting at the same time. So I mean, even if a character you don't think represents you, it represents a part of you. So like, the reason why we think, you know, like Trey Parker and Matt Stone comedy is so funny isn't because we are that crude, but like the brazenness and the audacity of it is so funny to us, and like certain things about it are so funny to us. So like, you're gonna create a character that isn't you, but that it's still part of you, and you're still giving it life, and it's still, the stakes are high for you to make sure it's like a well-developed and like meaty character that like has a place in the scene and is doing something to move it forward. And you know, improv and stand-up, there's so many transferable skills between the two, and they supplement each other so well. And a lot of improvisers are so terrified of stand-up and vice versa, and it's just so funny to me that they feel that way, because every time you riff, you're improvising, and then every time you tell a monologue and improv, you're doing stand-up, and there's so much in common. And I mean, I would really encourage you to try improv. And then Janet knows more about drama acting and improvising.
Well, this is what I would say, and this is something I say because I teach improv a lot to people, and quite a few stand-ups, very good ones in town, also take improv classes. And what I will say is, what I notice about, and this is a commentary on Portland, my own personal opinion, there's a lot of cerebral activity happening in people's comedy where they're just trying to craft everything just so, and everyone's standing stick straight, and there's nothing coming out of the face or the body, or you've got a whole stage there that you can use and play around with. And so what I think is helpful for the stand-ups that come to improv class is that they get to put the whole performance together. And I have found, like Allie, for example, I have taken a lot of improv classes with her, and then I went to her very first stand-up, like first or second time she got up on the stage to do stand-up, and in comparison to the other people on stage, she was killing it in comparison, because she had all this expression and, you know, all this stuff that she was doing that brought the jokes to life. So that's what I thought was the best part about kind of combining all of that. And a lot of the people that have gone to Los Angeles and are writing on comedy shows right now, every one of them have performed improv in this town, and are quite good at it.
Coop, you did that too, huh? Didn't you start with improv?
I didn't, but I've been secretly taking improv classes.
Oh,
Don't tell anybody here. No, I have been quietly taking improv classes for like a year and a half, and I love it so much. Even if you have no ambition to get onto a stand-up stage, it's like such an incredibly, it's just great. It's childlike. You just like cut all the shit, stay focused on the person you're with, and like you're creating, and you're just having so much fun. And it's been great for my stand-up because I am in the moment and I feel safe there. Like, and that used to, like, I'm still very verbose. Like, brevity is still an issue. But I will actually take pause in my blah blah blathering on stage if something's happening it's like a moment thing that's we're on something, like there's something sparked from an audience member, or like I'm just like, oh, this is even funnier if I keep talking, but I can take a breath now and be like, because I've learned through doing improv that it's okay to rest and see what's happening and respond to what's happening. And furthermore, just as I'm very spazzy on stage, or I can be, but I think that taking improv has taught me to control my body a little bit more. But also, yeah, I have a Monday night improv class, and my favorite, I highly recommend Monday night show is called It's Gonna Be Okay. It's every Monday at the Eastburn Tavern, and it's free. And I love doing that show. But so sometimes I'll take the first hour of improv class and then go to the show, because it warms me, it gets me like connected to the people around me and to my own self, and it's great for everything. It's great for living your life. The last thing I'll say about improv, it like really teaches you to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I've got so many lessons in honesty from taking an improv class.
Yeah.
Because you can't really be full of shit, and you have to say things that make sense. And
Yeah.
and if you're you really just have to be listening to everybody around you, and that's also, yeah, anyway.
And like listening to yourself too, like being true to yourself and then trusting that first instinct and committing to it and going for it.
Yeah.
I started an improv and then did stand up, and it was like maybe it was a couple months after I had stopped doing both because I just chose one at a certain point. And we were driving from Seattle down, and I go, oh, I think I was a happier person when I was doing improv. And the driver goes, yeah, you were. Like, oh, okay. Which I haven't taken a class again, but I always really want to. yeah. It was like, drop me off now. Yes.
For well, you just made me think of something. For those of you who've done improv, do you feel like, does it help you in your stand-up? Do you feel like it helps you kind of go with the flow and adjust to the audience? And because Kirsten was talking about being more aware of the people who are on stage with you and something's working for the audience, does that play into your stand-up at all?
Is it for me? I mean, I have 3 jokes off that I know of for a fact that started because of an improv bit that was done, you know. And then asked the person, I was like, I'm going to make this into a thing. They're like, yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, they do coincide. And everyone, if anyone wants to talk about sketch too, I can only assume, yeah.
That's where a lot of fun characters and scenarios can come from, because I enjoy performing and watching improv that is rooted in reality. It's not wacky town. And having those weird little characters that your body and your brain is kind of held on to from your last bus line 15 ride. And you're like, oh, I remember this, and my body wants to like have fun with that, and then putting that into a story and pulling a sketch out of it. And sometimes it takes a while. I just kind of comb it out to make a story out of it. But Shelly's got some fantastic characters. I wonder, do you pull those from your improv too?
Yeah, I mean, as far as improv to sketch, I like sketch comedy that is more natural, more grounded, like Aaron was talking about. And you can't really get to that just sitting behind your computer and going, this is what this person would say, and then they would do this, and that would be hilarious. Like, improv really lets you just find the moment together in a natural way that's not so, whatever. Translate that into something. I write sketch in, I write a lot with Michael Fetters. He's my partner in the Aces. We've been together for 7 years, I think. And so he and I will come together with ideas, and we might do a loose sketch, writing of a sketch, but we do a lot of improv together and just see what happens. And a lot of funny, hilarious things just happen in the moment that are like, oh, this is now going to be in the show. So.
That's awesome. We're getting very close to the time. Does everyone have any last minute questions? Yeah.
So the sketch comedy is what I'm really interested in, and I'm most curious about how to break into that. I know I'm in an improv class right now, and my brain naturally writes sketch comedy, and about 6 years ago, one of the bands I'm in, we just decided to write and perform Jaws the musical. And that was, and I got big.
It's amazing.
Thanks. So I'm Celine Dion and the Cougar Show.
I have the sticker on my helmet. Keep it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, and so that was the first time I ever even attempted acting, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing up here? Shitting my thong in front of everybody, and it worked out, and I ended up getting like bit by the bug, of like, I fucking love this. This is so exciting. And so I'm naturally continuing to write sketch comedy, but that's the thing I don't know how to like break into, like, more than improv. Improv is like terrifying, but I think really good for your brain. But it's the sketch comedy that I really like jonesing to get into that. So if there's any advice on how to get more into that.
Right, put up your own show.
Well, okay. So then I even started decided, all right, I don't know all the right people, so I'm gonna do my own shit. So I ended up getting a video camera, and my first sketch that I made was the zombie cooking show Trump's Trump, where I'm making this rump roast, turns into a Trump roast, and me and my family projectile vomit on it. We're all zombies, by the way. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it was just so much work to do the video, learn the editing, do the sound effects, so much fucking work that I thought like, you know, I can't do this and have a day job and, you know, still.
Put up a live show. It's much easier to put up a live show.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that tech stuff from video, it's, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like a really fun product usually, but it takes, so much.
Well,
Yeah.
that's where delegation comes in community. There's on MLK, what is it called, the Portland Media Center?
Open signal?
Open Signal, yeah.
Signal.
So they have like classes you can take and stuff. I struggle
You
with
ready
this.
to?
I struggle with this too of like how do you do it because there's not enough bandwidth to create it and then edit it and do all the stuff. And so that's where projects of mine have just fallen off, which is a bummer. But really delegate and find. I would even suggest trying to find college students that are looking for a project to work on too. They might collaborate with you, PSU kids and stuff. But Open Signal is a great resource for that kind of media relations because there's a lot of people that are strictly just, I want to learn how to edit, and then what a great match.
Yeah.
But I can attest to what Shelley says, like doing something live, I mean, it of course takes a lot of work and stuff, but finding a small space that maybe you didn't think of as a performance space before, but just to put it up and like just kind of barf it out, and like Katie was saying, you can write, but you gotta put it up in front of an audience and give that feedback. I mean, I think as adults starting into these types of creative endeavors, it's scary getting that feedback because it feels like a risk because you're really putting yourself out there, but it's necessary and it's the most scary part and the most thrilling part of it, and
And it is work.
It is work,
No matter any show you're gonna see, people work their ass off for it. To find to write it, to do the props, to get the people there, like, it's every bit of it is hard work.
the shittiest show you've ever seen.
Yep.
Somebody put
I've
a
done
lot of
those.
work into it.
And it's a really loving community too. I would suggest if you're interested, going out and seeing the shows. And not only Siren, Curious, at Funhouse Lounge. There's places that live sketch comedy is happening at, and then follow them on Facebook and send a message. Like I get a lot of people in the stand-up world that are like, I saw you and I just have a couple questions. Do you mind? I never mind, and I would assume none of us would ever mind. We might not respond right away, but it's so much. It's why not share the wealth of information?
Have you been to Kickstand yet?
No.
They do it's a really accessible theater space above the Siren, and they do a bit night. And it's just like, I don't want to say random people, but it's just random people coming with a bit, and just to like, if it's stand up or sketch, or just like, I'm working on this character and I just want to be this character, it gets weird and it's fun.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it costs any money, really. I think they're donation based.
Yeah.
Kickstand's a wonderful place to
Yeah,
go.
and for the gentleman back earlier, Kickstand also Monday night, a gentleman named Dan Weber runs an open mic, and I don't remember exact time, but every Monday it's a different 9:30. Thanks. It's a different thing. So some of them is just come with premises only, or some of them's a riff night or something. So it's a really fun way for people who are dipping a toe in to just get comfortable on a stage, get comfortable in front of strangers, but have a less pressure of I have to come with my own material right now. So it's a really inviting environment again.
I have one suggestion.
Kickstand comedy.
Oh, that's a Kickstand.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
There's also a new theater called The Ape, and I've been in contact with them a lot because they're looking for female-run productions or female-based things, or women, female. That sounds funny. But like you might talk to them and like take this suggestion of like putting up a live show and just like pick a date like 4 months from now, and you're like, fuck, I gotta get 7 sketches together and like.
Oh, there's nothing like a deadline.
That's
Right.
Yeah, you've got to have something you're working for, otherwise it just like floats into.
Yeah.
So, and that's what you mean by, I guess when you said a live show, I wasn't exactly sure what you meant, like,
on the stage.
On the stage.
Okay,
stage.
gotcha.
Instead
Live.
of filming it, yes.
Gotcha. Okay, I thought you meant like a live video feed or something like that.
Oh.
No, just a live show.
Way more fun.
Yeah. So that is the conclusion. Comedy. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you guys so much for kicking ass and everything that you do and being here today and sharing all of your knowledge. Please feel free to talk to us after or look us up online, and we hope to see you out at some of our shows.
Well, I have one last thing I was going to